is watching. It's the end of the world. Illuminati is coming. Gather the boys and girls and watch.
Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in, and what we have for you today is our review of Sony's flagship 2021 OLED TV, the A80J. Now this TV is powered by Sony's Bravia XR cognitive processor, which Sony says thinks the way humans do, and it enhances the picture quality. Now this isn't the first TV that we've seen with Sony's XR processor. The first TV we actually reviewed was the X90J a couple of months ago, and if you haven't seen that review, it's probably because you're not subscribed to the channel, and you may want to also hit the bell icon so you're notified when we upload a new video. Now this is the second TV that we've seen with the cognitive XR processor, and this is Sony's flagship OLED TV. So it means that you are going to get really deep blacks and very good color reproduction. But how does it fare against the competition, especially something like the LG C1? And should you definitely consider this TV if you are in the space to buy a premium TV? So let's answer all this and look at what this TV brings in a lot of detail. So as always, we are going to kick things off with our Calman analysis, and we have some very interesting numbers to talk about out here, especially when you consider the kind of customization and control the Sony TV gives you over the kind of settings you have on offer. Now, of course, we do our readings on the presets that you will use, such as standard, cinema, so on and so forth, to see what kind of color accuracy these presets bring. And kicking things off with the cinema preset, you can see that we get an average delta error of 2.7, which is not bad considering what's on offer. There is of course a custom preset which brings down the error slightly more to 2.5, and when you consider the peak brightness of the TV in SDR, we get a peak luminance a little less than 300, which is actually very good. Now just to put things into perspective, the LG C1 in SDR had a peak brightness around 125, 130s, that way we saw it, and it went a little higher. So this TV can definitely get pretty bright when it comes to SDR content. But moving over to HDR content, this is where it is giving a blow to the LG C1, and this one also comes in at about 750 nits of peak brightness in HDR, which is once again very good. So if you are looking for a TV that can give you really good colors, a very color accurate reproduction of content, then this is definitely one for you to consider. In fact, if you're a cinephile, then this is definitely the TV to go for, and we're going to understand why. Now, let's say you're watching a movie like Mission Impossible on Netflix, which is in full HD and SDR. The kind of skin tones and the colors on offer look very natural in both the standard and the cinema preset, simply because a lot of people just leave their TVs in the standard preset, and Sony understands this, and probably the preset has been calibrated in a way to give you the best possible output. Yes, the cinema preset just changes the color temperature to a slightly warmer tone, which does give you a more cinematic experience out there, but the cooler tone on the standard preset also isn't something that should bother you. Now, rather than having color temperature called as warm, it is called Expert 1 on the Sony TV, which is the warm temperature, and it is set here by default in the cinema preset, and I think you should just leave it at that. We're going to talk a little bit more about settings you can tinker with when it comes to HDR content. Moving over to a show like Young Sheldon on Prime Videos, once again, just like the LG C1, we found that on the Sony A80J, shifting to the Vivid preset just makes the content look that much more punchier, and some of you may just appreciate how it looks, because in the standard preset, the colors look slightly more natural with a cooler bias and a little more muted when compared to the Vivid preset, and of course the cinema preset adds the warm tone to it. Not that any one of these presets is bad per se, it's just that the Vivid preset made it more appealing for people to watch, and I showed this to a couple of people around the house when I was testing this TV, and a lot of them preferred watching a show like Young Sheldon with the Vivid preset for the punchiness of the colors. But then again, when you move to HDR content, this is where you need to see whether it's HDR10 or Dolby Vision. Now, Dolby Vision content on Netflix, like Our Planet, for example, you have the standard slew of settings like Dolby Vision Bright and Dolby Vision Dark, and like I've always said, you can always just leave the TV on Dolby Vision Bright and forget about it. When it comes to HDR content, like let's say the Grand Tour, you should leave it on the cinema preset because there you get pretty good colors, or you could also leave it on the custom preset because that tries to give you the most color accurate representation of the content. And without going into too much detail, I can just tell you that the content absolutely looks fantastic on this TV. But there are a few settings which let you tinker around with things that can give you a better experience, especially if you're going to consume content in a slightly bright room on this TV. Now, one of the settings you have control over is the HDR tone mapping in the picture preset, and you can put put this on brightness preferred, and when you put it on brightness preferred, it actually punches up the brightness of the TV to give you a slightly better experience. You also have control over peak luminance, and we set this at high, and that also gives you a good experience in a brightly lit room because the peak brightness is punched up and you do feel it in the highlights of the TV. Now remember, HDR tone mapping, you may see some form of gradation in a dark room, and that's why you may want to turn this setting off or turn it down a little bit. But in our experience, we left it on brightness preferred to get some really nice bright highlights in some sequences, and we really enjoyed that even in a dark room, because even in a dark room, considering the OLED nature of the panel, there was no form of blooming or haloing that was very obvious to the eye. So the overall performance of content on this TV is absolutely very good. Now, something we don't really talk about is SD content, or if you're someone that has a collection of good old DVDs and wants to watch those movies, this is a fantastic TV simply because of the way it upscales that content and with its edge detection. So if you have a good old DVD and you play it on a TV, you might notice some blurriness or some noise around the edges of the display or on the edges of certain objects in the movie or in the particular scene, but that isn't the case out here. And Sony's XR processor, I'm guessing, is really hard at work to ensure that even older content like your collection of old DVDs looks really good on this television, and it's a great advantage, especially if you're someone that likes consuming legacy content that isn't available on Blu-rays yet. So from the overall picture performance, we can tell you that we're really very happy with this TV. And moving over to gaming, and this is where I feel a little sad about the overall performance of this TV, not because of its picture performance, but because of some of the features on offer. Now, we played our standard slew of games from the likes of Spider-Man Miles Morales, Dirt 5 and Ghost of Tsushima, quite a few. And the overall performance of this TV is actually very good. Now, during the course of our review of this TV, we received an update where when you connect a PS5 to the TV, you have to consider calibrating the brightness of the panel to the brightness settings of the console. And when we connected the console, it said that the TV has calibrated the settings for you automatically. And when you play a game like Dirt 5, which is an HGIG game, which kind of tells you how this calibration kind of works and how good it looks on the TV, it looked really good. We did not lose any details in the specular highlights on this TV, which was really, really nice. Even the other games like Spider-Man Miles Morales, where you're swinging into this city and using his venom powers, you do get those punchy highlights in HDR, which is what you would expect. But here is where I feel this TV falls short, especially when you compare it to the LG C1. To begin with, of the 4 HDMI ports on offer, only 2 of them give you HDMI 2.1 features like a 4K at 120Hz, and the Sony A80J still lacks VRR support, something that's available on the LG C1. Not to mention the fact that when you connect a gaming console to the LG C1, you actually get a lot of settings at your disposal, which give you a lot of customization. So if you open the settings on the LG C1, you get this nice game bar, which shows you the frame rate. You have settings for different genres of games as well that you can check out. On the Sony A80J, the settings are pretty simple. And if you are someone that has both the next-gen consoles, a 30 series GPU and a soundbar, then you are going to have to make some choices, because of the 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, one of them is ARC enabled, or rather EARC enabled, so you can connect a soundbar. So while the picture performance when it comes to gaming for this TV is really good, it's been 3 years that LG has been giving us 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, and Sony really needs to catch up over there. Moving over to audio, this TV has Sony's Acoustic Surface Plus technology, which essentially means that it has 2 actuators, 2 subwoofers. And Sony's Acoustic Surface Audio Plus TV technology is actually one of the better sounding TV speakers we've seen out there, simply for its clarity and channel separation. So because the entire display acts as a speaker, when something moves from the left to the right of the screen, you can actually feel the sound move. So Ready Player One is a great example. Of course, we can't show you the footage for copyright reasons, but when the race at the 12-minute mark has all these cars whizzing around the display, you do get an absolutely immersive experience because of the audio, because you can actually hear it shift from left to right. It's also pretty clear for a set of speakers on a TV, and you may not want to consider getting a soundbar if you are using this TV in a bedroom. Moving over to the user interface, again, like we've seen on the X80J, 85J, X90J, this TV also runs on the Google TV UI. It has far-field mics as well for you to give the OK Google command, and it works really well. You also get the content first kind of an appeal, which we've seen on Xiaomi's patch wall, and honestly the Google TV UI on this TV just worked really fluidly. There literally no complaints out here. Even with the remote control, it's the same one we saw with the X90J. It has a simple candy bar form factor. It has playback controls at the bottoms, OTT hotkeys for Netflix, and and I wish it had probably more OTT hotkeys, but that's okay. It's a pretty ergonomic remote and it's a little old school and I kind of like it. Oh, and of course, coming to the connectivity options, you have 4 HDMI ports, 3 USB ports, headphones out, antenna, LAN and AV port. It's completely loaded, optical out as well. And the only thing that I can say is you just have one HDMI port which is facing outwards and the rest of them are facing down. So it may be a little inconvenient for you to plug in cables if you have wall mounted the TV. But that's again something that's a personal preference. The panel is really slim and it has a slight thick rectangular back where all the components and ports are housed. When you put this TV on a tabletop stand, it has 2 feet that protrude out, but they aren't really extremely wide. If you have a cabinet which fits a 55-inch TV, it should be able to fit this one. The one we have in for review is a 65-inch variant, and the stand is slightly customizable. If you want the TV to sit flush with the floor, it'll sit there. If you want it slightly elevated, you can change the feet that way as well based on your personal preference. We kept it flush with the table. So overall, let's answer an important question is, should you consider the A80J, considering this is Sony's flagship OLED TV for 2021? And if you're a hardcore movie enthusiast, this TV also has an IMAX enhanced mode, which we really didn't talk about because we really don't have a lot of IMAX content at our disposal. Disney Plus has started pushing out content internationally in IMAX enhanced, and we really can't wait for it to come to India to check out what it looks like. But having said that, if you're someone who is a true cinephile, if you're someone that just loves watching movies, if you have a collection of old DVDs and want to watch them in their best fidelity, if you want to watch content which is very accurate and appeasing to the eye on a panel which is really bright and can represent content, especially in HDR really well, then you can definitely consider the A80J. It is a fantastic TV for what's on offer, including the picture performance, the sound, the peak brightness for HDR, and especially content playback in standard definition, which means even if you connect a set-top box to this TV, you should be really happy with its overall output. Where it suffers is only with the fact that if you're someone who's a gamer or if you are someone that is looking to future-proof your television with more HDMI 2.1 ports, this TV still only comes with 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, and I think in 2021 we should expect for, hopefully with Sony's 2022 lineup of TVs, we can expect all 4 ports to support HDMI 2.1, because let's face it, HDMI 2.1 enabled devices are just growing in portfolio. So there you have it, guys. That was our review of the Sony A80J. As always, you can let us know what you thought of this video in the comment section below, and for more from the world of technology, you can subscribe to the channel. We will catch you in another video. It's goodbye for now.